who better than my next two guests to join me now to discuss a whole lot of impacts on the centre-right. Independent Liberal Moira Deeming, Senior Fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs John Roskam. Moira, welcome again. I saw you on Saturday night. John Roskam, welcome as always. I'll start with you if I can, John. The numbers have been crunched in the Fadden by-election where the coalition won with a swing of 4.5%, a margin over 13% to PP. Interestingly, though, the swing to the Liberals in voting booths where there was a high rate of mortgagees was much, much higher than the overall swing. In those booths where people are doing it tough, got a big mortgage, they got a 9% swing. Now, what does that tell you about how cost of living is biting, and what sort of pathway does that give the Liberal Party across the country?
Well, it tells me, Peter, a few things: that the next election is winnable for Peter Dutton. It communicates that what the government and Anthony Albanese is talking about, which is the voice, is a long way from the day-to-day concerns of mainstream Australians. And mainstream Australians, we now know from polls, don't like the voice anyway. And it's also indicating that Australians don't think that the government is doing anything to bring down inflation, to reduce the cost of their mortgages, that Australians want a government that understands their cost of living pressures. And, Peter, I can say one other thing, that if the coalition adds a commitment to abolish or pause net zero and bring down power prices in a real way, you will see the next federal election being a real contest, as we saw in the Fadden by-election.
Well, you know this better than anyone, Moira. I mean, you represent the people in Western Melbourne. A lot are doing it tough. I think quite rightly, given recent events this week, the cancellation of that promise to extend the rail line, first granted them back in 2017, but scrapped this week with no justification. You understand why they're angry on a lot of these cost of living issues. What do you think?
Peter, the people in the western suburbs are just so sick of being lied to. Every single election, the Labor Party over-promises and under-delivers. And it's really starting to have a huge impact on their lives. Every time the cost of living goes up with petrol prices or food prices, it might not matter to people over closer to the tram tracks, but it matters to us out in the West.
John, a couple of weeks ago I wrote about the ANU's Australian electoral study, and the study concluded that despite what people think that you have to go to the left in the Liberal Party in order to pick up these teals and win government again, this study says no. In fact, most of the teal voters were not disaffected Liberals. They were tactical Labor and Green voters. Less than 1 in 5 teal voters had ever before voted for the coalition. So by focusing on places, like teal seats, I think the Liberal Party loses its way. But focusing on places where Moira represents in Western Melbourne, South Brisbane, Western Sydney, of course, back where there's issues of mortgage stress, where people are doing it tough, where the household bills every month are really something that people worry over, that's how they get back into government, isn't it?
Well, it absolutely is, and that's what you and Tony Abbott did. That's what John Howard did. But it will take the Liberals to come to understand that their elite concerns around net zero, their elite concerns from some Liberals about the voice, elite concerns that are a long way removed from mainstream Australians, are going to have to be dumped. They're going to have to be dumped. The Liberal Party is going to have to represent workers. It's going to have to represent families and people in the outer suburbs, which it isn't at the moment doing, but it can. So this is going to be a big mind change for the Liberal Party. But if they were to make that change, just as Conservative parties are doing overseas, then, as we've talked about, the next election is absolutely winnable for Peter Dutton.
Well, Moira Deeming did that on Saturday night. I mean, Moira, you mightn't be in John Pizzuto's party room, but you're still a Liberal Party member. You headlined this big Liberal Party event out in Sydenham in Western Melbourne, run by the Sydenham Liberal Party. 450-odd people were out there, waiting list. But what I want people to understand at home is you said to Liberal supporters who said, oh, I want to come along and support, you said, don't just bring Liberals, go out there and get people who have never voted Liberal bring them along. That's what the party needs to do more and more of, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I come from Labor. The centre-right of Labor agrees with everything that we believe in. I don't even think it's a matter of changing what we believe or changing our mindset as Liberals. I think what people need from the Liberal Party is conviction, not capitulation. I'm not taking advice from my opponents who don't want me to get into government about what policies I should and shouldn't put forward. As a Liberal, I mean, either I believe in our Liberal Party principles or I don't. And I happen to believe that they are the moral high ground, they are the best economic model, and they are the best model for civil society. And we shouldn't be ashamed of our values. We should be going out there, like we did on Saturday, with our best speakers and showing people who the Liberal Party really is. And they'll vote for us.
John, when you were in the room, what was your reaction?
Oh, Peter and Moira, it was a wonderful evening in Caroline Springs. Congratulations to both of you. My reaction was at a number of levels. I saw Australians of all walks of life. I saw people in fancy suits. I saw people in thongs. I saw people who had never been to a Liberal Party function before. But as Moira just said, these were people who were not looking for policies for the Indian community, for the Chinese community, for young people. They were looking for policies for mainstream Australians from the Liberal Party that speak to them and their values, regardless of their background. And what struck me about Saturday night was people from all faiths, all religious and ethnic backgrounds coming together, and no one wants to be identified by where they or their parents or their grandparents have come from. They want to be identified as Australians. And for me, hearing Jacinta Price, hearing Warren Mundine speak about their backgrounds as Australians was very, very powerful. And Moira has shown a way forward for Liberals across Australia.
Just quickly, John, I'm almost out of time. The IPA put under pressure by big tech. You've got to call it censorship of anything they're putting up in relation to the Voice in the No campaign, don't you?
Yes, we're seeing big tech, not just fact-checking, but censoring our work. And we had an example of where an academic was saying, well, the IPA was wrong, except for this, this and this, which is our point exactly. And we're seeing supporters of the Yes campaign trying to rig this debate.
All right, Moira Deemy, got to leave it there. John Roskam, thank you as always. See you both next week.